Good afternoon. Thanks for watching. This is Jessie, and this is my channel, The Caffeinated Bookworm. And I'm here to review a book, and it's not anything you're expecting me to review, so I'm super sorry. I am reviewing Why My Wife Thinks I'm an Idiot, The Life and Times of a Sportscaster Dad by Mike Greenberg. Now, some of you, if you follow sports or somebody in your household follows sports, you might know him. He is one part of what used to be Mike and Mike. So there was Mike Golick and Mike Greenberg. He was Greenie. They started as, I believe, a radio show, and then by the time I came along, they were on TV, on ESPN, I believe it was, Mike and Mike in the Morning. I used to love watching them. I loved their dynamic. I thought they were hilarious. I'm saddened to hear that not only have they broken up, but neither one of them has really done too terribly much since they broke up. And then I think Golick had gotten another caster with him, and that didn't work out. Terrible stuff, because they were funny. So why am I reviewing this? Why haven't I finished Memories of Ice or Hyperion or the book that I'm supposed to be reading for the book club at work for July? On June 18th, one of my brothers died, and I've been in a terrible funk since then. I've been alternating between being weepy and being strangely detached and being confrontationally angry. And by the time last Friday rolled around, I really just wanted to, I needed to pull myself out of the funk. And so I was packing up some books from my office at my father-in-law's house, which obviously I'm still here. I haven't finished moving out of here either. And I'm probably actually not going to do that until the kids go back to school. But I was packing up my books here, and I ran across this book, and I thought, oh my God, I need to laugh. And so I started reading it, expecting it to be like slap your thigh, guffaw, hilarious. Well, I'm not going to say it wasn't, but the first part of it was not what I was expecting. So he's out of touch with reality, for one thing, but also, in addition to being out of touch with reality, he is fatalistic. I don't really know how else to put it, and I don't even know if I'm using the right word, or I'm going to have to go look that up, but that's the word that comes to mind when I was reading this book for him. And so it's divided into 5 sections. You have the prologue, the first, second, and third trips to the supermarket, and the epilogue. And so the prologue was confusing, to say the least, because the way that it started out, I was like, this is supposed to be funny. This is Greenie from Mike and Mike. It's supposed to be funny. The prologue made me wonder. And then the first trip to the supermarket was divided into 3 sections also, which was first trimester, second trimester, and third trimester, because his wife was pregnant with their first child at the time, which was their daughter. So it begins with him ranting about Ricky Ricardo. And if you're too young to know who Ricky Ricardo is, he is from the old sitcom I Love Lucy. I loved Lucy. I actually have been watching that, not because of the book. I actually started a little bit before that. Also because I was in a funk because my brother died. I don't even know what to tell you what's going on with my head right now. But he's ranting about Ricky Ricardo. It was a decidedly not funny part. He talks about his lack of he talks about his lack of confidence in becoming a father, his fears, his worries. He talks about his meetings with his therapist, Dr. Gray, how she wants him to write a journal, and how he's hoping that it's going to better the relationship he has with his wife, make him a better dad. He talked about the tragedy that almost had him turning away from reporting and journalism, but ended up being the catalyst that led him into being a sports writer. At this point, I'm kind of upset, but also curious. I'm upset because I wanted to laugh. That was the whole reason that I picked up the book. But I'm also curious. I just really needed to get out of my funk, and I had already started, and I was already vested in the book, and so I just kept going. Then I hit the green shoes bit, and I promise you I'm not going to read to you the whole entire book, but I have to read some of these sections to you. I also read them to John, and because I after I started this, I don't read sections of books to John too terribly much anymore. So now I owe him Popeyes, or at least food. Let me see. So, where did I want to read to you from? Oh, page 19 to 21. Okay. Sorry. I just barely sent my laptop back yesterday. I hadn't sent it back. I got the insurance. I sent it back. I sent it back yesterday. So she'll never wear the green shoes. That's how well I know her, which isn't to say I understand her. I certainly do not understand her, but I know her. And I know there isn't any way in hell she's going to come out of that closet wearing the green shoes. I should explain that my wife wears black like a suit of armor. It's her protection. It's her only color, and now she is convinced that the only reason her cousin asked her to be a bridesmaid is so she would have to wear a lime green dress. I mean, just look at it, she shrieked when she brought it home, still wrapped in cellophane. Barbara Bush wouldn't wear this. Tonight, she emerged from her closet wearing the dress and a pair of lime green shoes, which, she told me, had been recommended by the bride. That's the part that really gets me, she said. She doesn't insist you wear these horrendous shoes. She just recommends it. So you're a bitch if you don't, but you can't complain because she didn't make you wear them. She was teetering dangerously close to that place where anger turns to tears, which is a bad place to be when we are due in Fairfield, Connecticut in 2 hours, and traffic on the Parkway is guaranteed to be a nightmare. You know what? I said as gently as I could. I think they look great. She gave me a look that says, how could I have married someone with as little sense as you have? But I hung tough. I know it isn't your style, but it's actually a nice look, especially with your hair up like that. You're only having trouble with it because it's so different from what you usually wear. She softened. I was getting to her. I'll be waiting downstairs, I said. You do whatever you want, but I think the shoes look great. I left her staring at her feet. Now it's been 40 minutes and we are guaranteed to be late to this wedding, which will create endless strife within the family. Our tardiness is sure to be the topic of conversation at holiday gatherings for 20 years, but she's still up there struggling with the shoes. I'll say one thing. If she comes down wearing the green ones, there is more power in hormones than there is in an atomic bomb, because under normal circumstances, there is no way I could convince her to make even an insignificant change in her life, much less something as enormous as wearing green shoes. I hear her coming. I'll let you know what happened. The following day. What a horror show that proved to be. It began before we even left when a moth flew in. We both saw it go past us into the living room and disappear near a light fixture. Now, I hate moths, but I must say this did not cause me nearly the consternation it did my wife. Before I could stop her, she had kicked off her black shoes and climbed up on a kitchen stool, swinging a broom over her head. Mind you, we were now inside of an hour from the time we were supposed to be at this wedding. The notion flashed through my mind that the pregnancy was making her delusional. Honey, I said, this hardly seems worth the trouble. We have to get rid of it, she shouted, swinging the broom like Derek Jeter. It's a moth, I said. Are you worried it's going to steal the television? Well, as it turned out, we were a good half hour late to the wedding. My wife refused to wear any shoes at all during the ceremony. The best man made a drunken toast in which he reminisced too fondly about the groom's womanizing, and I got a speeding ticket on the way home because my wife had to pee really badly. Oh, and the moth lived. So, I mean, that part when I first read it had me chortling. So I read that piece to John. And like I said, this used to actually happen more often. But where did it? Let's see. There's more that I wanted to read to you. It's alternately funny, uncomfortable, depressing. He talks about his really awkward dating life, how he's happy he's found someone who's crazy he could handle. And I quote, who eats and has her original breasts, because apparently he has dated people who did not eat and people who did not have their original breasts. He is unapologetically male, in spite of or despite of opening the book talking about how he was metrosexual before there was a word for it. He actually calls himself a feminist in the book after doing something that was closer, like, and he admits it, like what he did at that part was closer to masochism than it was, or to macho man, like kind of thing, than it was to feminism. And then there's the part where he offers to watch his brother's kids so that his brother and the wife can get away for the weekend. And that was just hilarious. Let me see. Oh, what a colossal blunder this was. We were having dinner with my brother and sister-in-law on Thursday, and they were bemoaning how they never get away since my nephew was born. I don't know if I was acting in the spirit of kinship or the spirit of Grey Goose vodka. Oh, he gets drunk a lot. But suddenly I heard myself saying, why don't you leave Edgar with us and go away for the weekend? Not since the ball rolled between the legs of Boston's Bill Buckner in the World Series has anyone committed an error of this magnitude. The next day, they're at a bed and breakfast in Vermont eating freshly baked muffins, and I'm a hostage in my own house. Edgar is almost 3 and named for his maternal grandfather, whom neither he nor I was ever privileged to meet. He may well be the only American boy named Edgar in the last 40 years, but generally he's a likable child, though he does have 2 qualities I find challenging. The first is that his nose is a faucet, and on and on and on about the faucet nose. The other problem I have with Edgar is his endless supply of energy. From the instant the child awakens, he is forcibly banished to his crib. Until he is forcibly banished to his crib, he never stops. He runs, screams, cries, jumps, throws balls, kicks cats, chases dogs, rolls in mud, stomps in puddles, buries himself in snowdrifts, covers himself with ice cream, crashes toy cars, jumps off walls, hides and seeks, and throughout the process, never ceases asking questions. The first 5 minutes are exhilarating. The next 15 are a struggle. By the hour, it is exhausting, and anything beyond that is pure torture. I believe if they sentenced felons to fly coach to Hawaii with my nephew, the chance of repeat offenses would be cut in half before they got to LA. And then on and on and on about how he's not potty trained. It was a really funny section. And then there was a time he said that pregnancy was harder on the man. And this is fun. Let's see. All we can do is comfort the best we can. He's talking about women who are pregnant. All we can do is comfort the best we can and duck when there is no other recourse. And no matter what happens, never joke about it. I found that out the hard way last night. It was a dinner party for 5 couples, and you need to understand that at these functions, there is always a great deal of pressure on me to know everything that there is to know about sports and to be funny. And those just aren't always easy things to accomplish at the same time. So we're sitting with these doctor friends having dinner, and everyone is bouncing sports questions off me. Then one of the doctors starts telling me that watching his kid play competitive basketball is the hardest thing he ever had to do. He said he becomes so nervous he often cannot remain in the arena. In response, I told a story of how Phil Jackson once told me he was infinitely more nervous as a coach than he ever was as a player because he had no control over the action. Phil actually never said that, but it made a great story. The table was riveted. I had fulfilled the first part of my obligation. Now it was time to be funny. You know, I said, it's sort of like being an expectant father. You just feel helpless. Sometimes I think pregnancy is actually harder on the husband. Do you remember the commercials when E.F. Hutton would talk? That is how silent the room became. All the women leaned closer as if they could not believe they had actually heard it. I glanced at the other men, hoping for support, but they bailed on me like Billy Zane fleeing the Titanic. The looks on their faces said, "We love you, Greenie, but you're dead." The ride home wasn't pretty. This is one I'm going to be hearing about for a while. Like during her 6th trip to the bathroom last night when she threw a dagger through the slightly ajar door. "I guess this is actually harder on you," she shouted. There is a lesson to be learned in this one I will make sure to pass on to the unborn child, especially if it is a boy, and it is very simple. All is fair in love, war, and comedy, but wherever you go and whatever you do, never kid around about labor pain in front of a bunch of mothers. So, and I don't know what to think about this guy. Sometimes he is painfully human and unbelievably relatable, but then there's a food poisoning scene where he goes to the hospital. They're asking him for his insurance, and he literally tells the orderly or whoever it was who was asking for his insurance information, "Hey, this is my butler from that really expensive hotel down the road. You really think I don't have insurance, or you really think I'm not going to pay," or something like that. I was like, wow. And he admits that it was a dickish thing to do. That was literally his word for it. He was like, "I admit that was a dickish thing to do," and it really was. And him admitting it doesn't really forgive it. And then there's let me see. He has to go to the supermarket and do the grocery shopping because his Panamanian nanny she's flown to Panama, and I quote, "to take care of a sick uncle or chickens or something." Like, I was talking about this with somebody at work, and they said that he probably did it to be funny because he probably couldn't remember why she flew to Panama, but he actually comes across as an even bigger ass than he did before. to take care of your sick uncle or chickens or something. Why does it have to be chickens? Like, why do you assume that they have chickens over there? I don't know. I don't want to know. He's so far removed from reality. Like, I mean, and he's rich. Like, I think, like his wife was making six figures even before he was a successful newscaster. But he's also really dramatic. Let me tell you something. This week in particular has been a greater education than I received in 4 years of college. I implore you to learn from it, from my mistakes, my suffering. Here's a situation. My wife left me. How about that for drama? If this were my radio show, I would have a lengthy pause before the explanation because the explanation is a whole lot less dramatic. The explanation is she had a work conference in Arizona that lasted the whole week. But frankly, she might as well have run off with the pharmacist for all the help she was around the house. So for 5 days, I was completely alone with the two children. Wait for it. And then in parentheses, actually, the live-in nanny was there, but the net loss was when the live-in nanny was there with him. Anyways, he does say, let's see, the only things that separate us are he's talking to his readers. The only things that separate us are a media credential and a parking pass. No, I promise you, these are not the only things that separate us. He actually gets into like a not quite an argument, but his therapist asks him when he shows her like what he's been journaling. She's like, this is just a test to try out material. And I don't think you're taking it seriously. So you need to consider whether or not you even need to still come to me if you're not taking this seriously. But I mean, there's also things in here like, oh my God, he's so fatalistic. Let me find it. Hold on. Like, here we go. So I love how my daughter orders ice cream. I'll have vanilla, she told the lady at Baskin Robbins, with rainbow sprinkles on top and a cone on the bottom. Then we were back in the car, and I was trying to keep the sprinkles from spilling on her dress. Honey, did anything exciting happen today at school? Not too much, she said. I'm marrying Caston. Please let it be a girl. Who's Caston? I asked, trying to my best to maintain a normal tone. He's in my class. I know my wife would say it was cute to hear little girls talk that way, but just then my instinct was to drive into the path of an oncoming truck. He is so, like I said, he's so fatalistic. And he says this like quite often during the book that he is either going to run into traffic or he's going to, I don't know, do something. Like, it's really disturbing. Like, if you think about the number of times that you could seriously construe some of the things that he says as like a call for help so he doesn't commit suicide. It was a funny, disturbing book in which I discovered way too much about Greenie that I kind of wish I hadn't, but also I feel somehow like I can relate to him. I don't know how that happened. Another thing is that this subtitle, The Life and Times of a Sportscaster Dad, is kind of misleading. It is really not too much about him being a dad. I mean, yeah, there's bits and pieces in there, like about the time that he got kicked out of the library when he was taking his son there for the first time and how he regretted not being able to go back to the library after he went into the women's restroom. Which I think was the part where he said that he was more of a feminist than a whatever it was, basically a chauvinistic pig, which is the way he came across that day. But all in all, it was a good book. It was a short book, teeny weeny book. I'm glad I read it, and now hopefully I am out of my funk and can continue reading Memories of Ice, and that'll be done soon. I will also post a couple more reviews of some of the other books that I've read this week. I am back. You will have your Wednesday deals tomorrow. Thank you so much for sticking with me. Thanks for liking. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe below. I'm sorry I still can't edit because no computer. Y'all have a wonderful day.